And as the clerk, I will be calling the special town meeting to order. Today is January 30th, and we're going to hold the election of the moderator. So Article 1 is to choose a moderator to preside at said meeting and to vote by a written ballot. I'm opening the floor to nominations for moderator.
Tom Danley.
Do I have a second on that?
I second that.
And any further nominations? Hearing none, I'll close the floor to nominations. And how about if I just pass the ballot to this front row so that we, and make it a little bit quicker, if you don't mind? Voting for the moderator. I have pencils.
Should be right with you. The clerk is putting out some stuff in.
Not a problem.
This is for voting for Tom Danlick as moderator. Yes. All set? Collect the ballots. Tom Danlick has been unanimously elected as moderator.
Lucky you, Tom. Thank you. I, Thomas Danley, do swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. I, Thomas Danley, do swear I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent upon me as moderator according to the Constitution and laws of the state of Maine. We'll wait till it starts, we still have folks coming in the door here. Okay, before we move on to Article 2, I think we need to take up a procedural matter, as there are two gentlemen who are non-voters in town who you may want to hear from with respect to the articles that are to be acted upon. That's our town manager, Keith Trefethen, and our town planner, Tad Redway. I'd like to entertain a motion to allow these gentlemen to speak at the meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This requires a 2/3 majority in order to pass. All in favor? Passes. Gentlemen can speak. Moving on then to Article 2. Shall the town adopt an ordinance entitled Moratorium Ordinance regarding recreational marijuana retail establishments and social clubs? A copy of the amendments that attached to the original special town meeting warrant as Appendix A, copies of which were available at the office of the town clerk. A motion to adopt Article 2.
Make a motion.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? And second. Discussion. Questions. Diane.
Diane Robbins, Town of Arundel. I have a few questions, because I was reading this, and it was asking for 180 days. And it said because, you know, we're in perilous danger and all this other kind of stuff. Explain to me what would happen if we didn't pass this tonight.
Do you want to take that? Tad?
If you don't pass this tonight,
Yep.
then the town would be susceptible to whatever laws the state, laws and regulations the state would enact. And at this point, the state has essentially created a moratorium that is, in which they will spend the next year of time developing regulations for the 5 different categories for marijuana use in the state. And so at this point, quite frankly, we would be waiting to see what the state would come out with as far as what we would enact for marijuana rules in the town of Arundel, and that's not gonna happen until February of 2018 at this point.
And that's kind of my point. My point is that I think that we're jumping the gun because we're gonna have to do this every 180 days for something that, according to the news articles today, state that the legislation that was passed, although having marijuana and being able to smoke marijuana in your own home and being able to grow up to X amount of plants in your own home for your own consumption, it's not until February of 2018 that they're supposed to release legislation that would state how they're going to license retail stores and growing and things like that. So to me, I think we're like a little bit jumping the gun because we're gonna be doing this every 180 days with something that's not gonna pass for a year from now. Now, if this was coming before me in November, then I would probably have a totally different discussion. But knowing that we're gonna have to go through this every 180 days, it just doesn't make any sense to vote on something like this right now.
Thank you. Yes, Rich?
Yeah, Rich Canong. I agree with Diane, it makes no sense to vote on this now, for a slightly different reason. I went, as a member of the planning board, I went to the town manager and asked that this be placed on the agenda, because we didn't know at that point, and we did not know what the state was going to do. In fact, the state didn't know what it was going to do until yesterday, when the governor finally decided to give it up and sign the bill. I agree that right now is probably not the time for us to enact a moratorium, because we can only do it twice, and after that, we don't get to play that card anymore, or at least that's my understanding of it. Am I correct on that?
You are.
Essentially, if we wait until next year, we can find out what the state is doing. The planning board will then be able to write the rules and the regulations within the town, and we'll have time to find out how the town feels about it. This is a brand-new area for all of us, and we don't know. I mean, we can come up with rules and regulations, but we've got to have public hearings and all of the other fun stuff that go along with that. So I would recommend that we vote this down so that the state law will override what is going to happen. And then in a year, once the state has figured it out, we can then start looking at it and developing the rules and regulations for Arundel.
Sure.
Let me put it a different way. The purpose of putting this up for vote tonight was in case the state failed to get that legislation signed by Governor LePage. That was the only reason we did it.
Diane?
The other thing that I would like everybody to consider, and I understand where the planning board may be coming from in regards to rules, regulations, comp plan, if they have to meet, do they have to make decisions? I wouldn't even recommend doing that at month February. I think that it would behoove us as a town to find out who's going to sit on these rulemaking committees and find out if there's any way that we can get pieces of this as they're working on it, so that we can already start to draft what we feel may serve our town. But to give, and I've sat through many of these meetings, the last public hearing, which I stormed out of because I felt that I was being disrespected as somebody who was asking questions, and having people from not the selectmen say things to me. That's not right. But people are always saying that as a town, we don't have a lot of business money coming in. When you look at Colorado, for the year 2014, the taxes for this alone was $60 million. So we're not talking little money. And we're not just talking stores. As a town that primarily does agriculture, we have big pieces of land that may be suitable for a growing facility. To be quite honest, I'd rather have that than someplace that stinks, okay? So I think it would behoove us as a community to try to stay in touch as this legislation flows through. and to try to stay on top of it as it's flowing through. And not just do what I'm gonna call a knee-jerk reaction to once it's passed. We ought to know pieces of it as it's happening and try to discuss it as it's happening, and that engages more people from town as well. So that would be my suggestion is, yes, we know that it's gonna pass in February in some form, unless they extend it. But it would behoove us as a town to find out what they're working on even before they pass something in February.
Yes, sir.
Rod Sparkwood, my sense is that 2 layers of protection are far better than one. Just as simply as the state legislature enacted, it can be reversed. If we don't have protection for ourselves and they change their mind, then we are without protection. So after 180 days expires and everything is looking good, leave it be. But folks come out tonight, they spent their hard-earned time to get here, I think at least we ought to take that first level of protection for ourselves.
Chip?
I understand your point exactly, sir. The challenge that we've got is that the town can only enact a moratorium for a maximum of 180 days, and it can only be renewed once for another 180 days. And so, if we do something tonight, a 360-day clock starts ticking, and that's it. When the 360 days are up, the moratorium's gone. So by relying on the state moratorium for now, gives us more flexibility down the road.
Yes, sir.
Yep, Costas Balmos. So, Chip, let me just ask. So what you're saying is if we enacted this, ours would run out in 6 months, but the states would keep going for another 6 months past?
Ours would run out in 6 months. You could renew it for another 6 months, another town meeting, but that's it, 360 days total.
Do they have to be renewed concurrently?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
For a total of 8 months.
Yep.
12 months total. 66, right?
100 days.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question for Wayne. It was suggested that we find out the names of the legislators that are on the committee. I don't know what committee is going to be, what state committee is going to be drafting this. But I think if we find out what state committee is going to be working on this, that we can go on the computer and find out their names.
Yes, what we've done is we've done a joint select committee that's gonna just deal with the marijuana, all the marijuana bills that are coming forward and this rule-making part. It just came out today, on who the members are gonna be, and I can email it to you guys.
Everybody, and we can make sure we pass it
Yeah.
around so that everybody knows who's on that committee, so that if you have any comments or concerns, you can contact the people on that committee.
And just to follow up real quick, also, there was a 9-month moratorium in the bill. We added 3 more months to it because we didn't want the moratorium to run out in the middle of the summer when we're not in Augusta and this joint standing committee is working on these regulations. So that was basically why we needed to push it to February. And by pushing it to February, any votes we need to take next January on implementation or whatever it might be, we have that time to do it then, or to vote on any other extensions or changes. Personally, everybody's on both sides of this as far as putting in tonight. If you did wait and you decided to do a moratorium next December, that gives you the 6 months to get into next town meeting of 2018, and if you're drafting rules that you could implement, at town meeting, if you wanted to set it up that way, but that would be, up to the town.
Thanks, Wayne. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a quick question for Wayne, and that is to send out a weekly update or a newsletter when the legislature is
Yep.
in session. Could you put on in that sometime who the members are of the
Yep.
joint committee?
Yep.
Oh, if there's anyone here in the room who doesn't get Wayne's newsletter, just please let him know, and he will make sure to put your name, your email address on his system so that you can get that information.
Any other comments on the article? Seeing none, then I'll put the question to the voters. With respect to Article 2, all those in favor of passing the moratorium stated in Article 2, please indicate so by raising your voting card. All those opposed? Article 2 fails. Article 3, shall the town repeal the Arundel Land Use Ordinance dated June 15, 2016, and replace it with the reformatted Arundel Land Use Ordinance dated December 5, 2016, containing reorganization of chapters, additions of information, headings, renumbering of all sections, and the deletion of repetitive text. Appendix B, copies of which were attached to the original warrant or at the office of the clerk. I have a motion with respect to Article 3.
So moved.
Second.
Which has been made and seconded. Any questions, comments, discussion? Yes, Linda?
I just want to confirm that what we're doing right now is everything that we voted on in the last town meeting with in effect of land use. There's nothing that's been changed, it's just wording.
Correct, there's only one thing that has been changed, and that is the date in which we have to do notifications when we make changes to the ordinance. We were not in compliance with the current state notification period, which is 13 days and 7 days. Currently, we just have 7 days, so we were out of compliance with state requirements. That's the only change, substantive change we have made.
Yes, Chip.
Tad, is the redundant, was it the Resource Protection District or something like that? Is that still in there?
The Resource Protection District is still in there. That you're referring to the Natural Resource Conservation District, which the comp plan. That's the one that the comp plan committee has recommended deletion. Planning board, that is still in there.
That is still in there?
Yes, that is up to the planning board to implement, hopefully by June. No pressure.
An example of something that needs to be cleaned up that is still in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That part is still.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll put Article 3 to the voters. All in favor of Article 3, please indicate by raising your cards. All opposed? Article 3 passes. Article 4, to receive a fiscal status report of the Arundel Seasonal Cottages Municipal Development and Tax Financing District for fiscal year 2016 as mandated as a condition of the TIF program approved by the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development. It was Appendix C attached to the original. Kind of an odd article, but I'll ask somebody to
Make a motion.
move for approval. Motion to approve, Article 4. Seconded. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Richard Westside. I guess my question is, what is the status? My understanding is we're trading taxes for some benefit to the town. Where would we stand with that?
Mr. Redwing?
Yes, we are in a tax increment financing district that the town established for the seasonal cottage project out on Route 1. This is our second TIF district, tax increment financing being TIF. Our first one was for the power lines, in which all that money was dedicated specifically to the fire department. The monies for this are dedicated to economic development in the town, the furtherance of activities that have been approved by the Economic Development Commission, the Arundel Comprehensive Planning Committee, and the Planning Board, and the Select.
Ted,
Yes.
speak a little louder.
Am I? I'm sorry.
Speak up, Ted.
Kids say the same thing. So basically, this TIF district, what we did, and it has a component in it where we are essentially have developed this TIF around the seasonal cottages, and we basically have that money, that tax revenue that's generated by that, protected in the TIF district, which means that it's exempted from county tax assessment, it's exempted from basically the state revenue sharing program, and therefore gives us, not completely exempted, but what it does is it gives us a credit in that sense. So we get this economic development, but without having to incur a massive tax deduction or a problem with our tax commitments to either the county or our receipt of revenues from the state. In exchange for that, we also give back some money to the developer to help pay for the infrastructure costs in order to do this project. This project is slated to be a $54 million project, which the town will have revenue from for the foreseeable future. This TIF district only applies for the next 20 years and has a graduated method of payment, which as time goes on, the developer receives less payback money and we receive more. We are projected to make somewhere in the order of $5 to $7 million during that course of time that's dedicated to economic development programs. Part of the revenue that part of the requirements that we're given by the state to do this program is that, it's kind of unusual to be honest with you, is that the town staff has to report for 3 years to the townspeople on how this project is proceeding, because this is kind of a unique project for the state. And so in compliance with that, we're making our first report to you, the citizens. We could not make it in the first year because it has to be accurate figures, and of course, we have the town meeting in June, and our commitments don't occur until August, so there's no way we could give you those figures. So we're always a year behind in our reporting. And the reporting that we're doing right now is basically for fiscal year 2015-16. And after 3 years, I don't have to make those reports anymore, unless, of course, townspeople and the selectmen want that report to be made on an annual basis. But interestingly enough, in that time period, if any of you saw the handouts that were provided, during that time period, we actually experienced a reduction in our assessed value, the value that was originally assessed for the whole property, which was at $721,472. Our assessed value in that first year was $413,644. So we had a net loss in our captured value, which is the amount of increase in revenue during that time period of $307,828. First question is, why did that happen? And the answer, very simply, as the assessor put it, is that there were properties that had not been purchased yet, that were supposed to be purchased, part of the original value, so that was not included, and that came off the tax rolls. And also there was an assembly of properties that had been taxed at a higher rate because they were smaller properties along Route 1, and when they were rolled into the big property, it actually reduced the value of the larger property by the assessing means. So we had a net loss in our first fiscal year, which means we paid the developer nothing during that time period. However, and of course, during that time period, we also had a mountain to excavate and basically create roads in. And in that first year, however, in the succeeding year, we had a much better return. In fact, our loss went to about $7 million in our second year. So we had a positive cash flow of $7 million of value in that year. In the upcoming fiscal year, which I will report again in June about, we are projected now with 26 structures that are built, 30 more structures that are at 50% construction, 10 buildings that currently are on finished roads, and 162 buildings that are not completed yet. We have a value projected for this upcoming fiscal year of $15,569,000, and that's only with, as I said, 30 at 50%. So right now this project is billed at 263, it's approved for 263 units. So the upside potential for this project and its benefit for the town is going to be significant, assuming that we continue with the same blistering pace that the developer is pursuing right now. He projects that he will have 50 units up and ready by the next fiscal year.
Any more questions?
Any questions?
Chip?
What is the difference between the projected tax receipts to the town for fiscal year 2016 and the actual tax receipts to, my understanding from your report is that actual tax receipts were zero.
For the first year.
Because of the decline for the first year.
Correct.
So what was the dollar amount lost? What was the projected dollar amount of incremental revenue for the town that we should have gotten but didn't because of this combination of
We were
parcels?
projecting 5 million at that time.
No, not assessed value, income,
Oh, income.
tax cash flow.
We were expecting to get about $20,000 that first year. We
Okay.
did not, so we did not get any of that revenue for our economic development program. That we still received the tax revenue, obviously, for what is out there, but that was the captured value receipts that we were going to receive. We did get that in our second year. We received 20,000, and town manager can correct me, but I would say the ballpark figure is around 20,000 for this fiscal year that we're currently in, correct?
Yeah, it may end up a little bit different. At this particular junction, the formula starts to kick in, because as we capture value, only 75% of that, 25% of the new captured value goes directly to the tax rolls. The other 75% is broken up into 67% going back to the developer, and 33% of that 75% coming to the town. So it's going to be somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000 that we will collect, that will go into that development fund for the town.
How does that compare with what the projections were when the project was approved?
We're behind, a little behind right now.
How much?
I don't have those figures, but I can get them for you.
Yes, ma'am.
How will the impact of how quickly these units sell and get occupied impact any of what the town expects to receive? Does it matter?
It really doesn't matter from the standpoint of sales. If they're stood up, they're assessed. But, of course, they're not gonna stand up more if they're not selling them. But right now, sales are fairly
That was
good,
my
and
next
they're
question.
fairly
Do you have
brisk and they're picking up. And the developer, I meet with the developer once a month. I have a drawdown meeting with the developer, our engineer, their engineer, and the contractors involved, and we go through the status of the project, we do our inspections, and then we approve, the town approves the drawdown request by the developer from funds that we have through a tri-party agreement with the bank. And thus far, they're actually looking at expanding at this particular time. They're on track with their projected development, and a little behind on their sales, but they're within their limits. And quite frankly, they're looking at developing right now or designing another phase beyond what was already approved. And they may be bringing that to us before the end of the year. So they're very encouraged by their sales, and they're very encouraged by their reception, and quite frankly, they're very well financed by out-of-state money.
Anyone else? Being done, put Article 4 to the voters. All those in favor of Article 4, please indicate by raising your cards. All those against. Article 4 passes. No other business?
Mr. Moderator?
Mr.
Mr. Moderator, can I ask the people that were in attendance a question related to the marijuana referendum?
Let's adjourn this special town meeting first, and then if you want to ask a question, let's do it.
Okay. Okay.
Motion to adjourn the town meeting, please.
So moved.
Second? All those in favor? Mr. Chairman of the Planning Board's got a question.
We're gonna have to start working on developing this, so I would like to find out, I have two questions for you. How many of you would be in favor of retail sales in the town of Arundel? Okay, how many of you are opposed? Okay. Now, the next question, the law allows for something called a smoke shop, where people can gather together and get wasted. I don't know how else to describe it, you know?
I think retail sales can go on as well.
Yeah, but I don't think you're supposed to be smoking it and then trying to drive away, but you might.
No, I mean, you can sell at the smoke.
Oh, you can sell at the smoke?
Yeah.
My understanding is that the law is two separate things, and I'm wondering how many of you would be in favor of smoke shops? How
I
many of you
think,
would be
I
in
think
favor?
first I wanna see how they're, part of the problem is that we don't have how they're set up and how it's worded.
Right.
So
but-
it's hard to say, do you or don't you, when you don't have,
But from a planning board point of view, we can conceptualize it and say, do we want it, do we think it's a good idea? Do we as citizens want it, or should we be like the town of Oakland, which outlawed it completely? They said, no, you can't have them
we
here.
let people drink.
Well, that's why I'm asking. You know, do we want to have these or do we not want to have them? If we don't want to have them, then the planning board can work from that point, and if you want to have them, we can work from that point.
I think it would be best if you devised a survey with all those questions on it, and it goes to everybody in the town, and not just the small.
And that would be fine, I'm just trying to get an idea from the group. You guys cared enough to show up, so I figured you would be the group to ask.
Well, I think the other thing we have to take into consideration is that this wasn't something that was passed by the legislature.
It wasn't, you're right.
This is something that was passed by the voters, and if you go back and you look at the town of Arundel, while it wasn't a giant landslide, the town of Arundel actually voted to pass the bill.
I believe,
So
was it
I think that in
53-47?
itself gives us a directive.
But it,
Diane, did you read the bill?
Yes,
Any pages of it?
I actually read the whole thing.
You're probably the only one, huh?
Because I had someone tell me that if you were a medicinal, that it was gonna put medicinal marijuana growers out of business, and so people were telling me things that weren't true. So I actually pulled the whole legislation down and gave a copy to the person who gave me misinformation and read it.
Can I say something real quick on that? The problem is, like in all these bills, where it said 3 or 4 places that people under 21 couldn't have it, they took out in the bill a whole section of juvenile law, which you wouldn't know because it says subsection 12 eliminated. So unless you go in, not only the 30-page bill, but you need to go into each place where they say that they're eliminating a section of law, because there's a whole bunch of ramifications there. And that's what happened, I mean, and what happens on any of these, and we voted on another one at ballot this last June, November, was expanding main care. That's a whole other thing that's gonna come this November. But the problem with the referendums is industry is doing it. We in the legislature cannot change one word in a citizens initiated bill. We either have to pass it exactly the way the people that did the signatures put it in, or we have to let it go to the people. We cannot touch it until it gets made law, and then we do what we did the other day and make sure people aren't driving around smoking in the car, to make sure people aren't doing it in public, to make sure that under 21s aren't possessing it. And I mean, the moratorium was a small part because there was a moratorium part in there. The big thing was driving while smoking is, to me, was one of the bigger issues even last fall, just because of we don't have a way to test it. And there's still impaired driving, but it's still a thing in progress that we're trying to put together. But, I mean, the way the law was written, you could drive down the road and smoke a joint the whole time you were driving. So, and that's what happens on citizens-initiated bills, is we in the legislature can't do anything until, if it gets passed.
Yeah,
And the referendum question is 1 sentence.
Right.
Yeah, and
Most
to-
people, I think, assume that it just dealt with recreational use.
I think the smallest bill was, it might have been the tax bill, and I think that was 5 pages long. So there's a lot in, I mean, ranked choice voting will be another one that we're dealing with, that I've already gotten the issues on. On the face, it's constitutional, but in Maine Constitution, the word plurality is in there. So that's a whole other thing.
Right, and just to address Diane's point, the law passed, the law is what it is. I happen to think that most people voted for it because they want to be able to get stoned in the privacy of their own house, and they want to have their own little stash. I don't know how the people in Arundel feel about retail or how they feel about smoke shops, and the planning board is going to have to address those issues. So, I mean, I will put together a little survey monkey and send it out to find out, because I'd really like to know that answer. But I figured you guys cared enough to show up, I'd ask, how do you feel about it?
Another real thing real quick on the limits, there was the 2.5 ounce limit per pot. We also put in a 5 gram limit on concentrate, because the way they wrote the law, it was 2.5 ounces of concentrate, which was like thousands and thousands and thousands of doses. So that was another thing that got fixed in that last bill, LD 88.
The Medicaid one will be interesting because we don't even know what the funding for that's gonna be. And I was there when they were asking for signatures, telling everybody that it was gonna cost you nothing. So people signed it thinking it was gonna cost you nothing.
I know when we were gonna get 95%, it was gonna cost the state of Maine between 8 and 15 million on their share. And that was at that point.
I'm not moderating it.
I just want to make one other point, is that as far as revenue from smoke shops or retail sales, nothing goes to the town of Arundel. Absolutely nothing.
Well, you don't
Not one
know
penny.
that yet, because the law's not written yet as far as distribution. I would say before you actually do take a lot of action on it, figure that out. Because Oxford County gets Oxford County, right? Because they've got the casino.
That's up to the legislature
Oh,
as
yeah,
to whether
I
or
know.
not we can. My understanding is that the legislature keeps shooting down local sales tax control.
Well, that'll have to be worked out and found out.
And the other piece of legislation that goes with it is the growing.
Yep.
So if they decide to come into town, as they've done in other towns, looking for property to build a facility, that is taxable.
Oh, you're assuming they're not already here. I wouldn't make that assumption.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good assumption.
I'm not.
I know that's not a good
Well,
assumption.
to be quite honest, some of the statistics that have been done in states, and I was reading this, some of the statistics that have been done in other states show that use in underage in some places went up. It depended on how long it had been legal. But one of the things that they were saying is that in some cases it puts the people who are selling it through the back door out of business. And those are generally the ones that are gonna sell to minors. These places that are just opening up and having a shop and selling it in retail are probably not going to be so inclined to sell it to minors because it's too early and the penalties will be there. It's like alcohol.
Yeah.
So what'll happen is the adults will go there and it's gonna shut down the back door. It's gonna close it down and make it significantly smaller.
The only other point I would make is,
Oh, I think it will.
there are going to be smoke shops and retail places in Wells, Biddeford.
Instead of having a big
Thank you.